Chapter 18. Captivity Day 22 TRO. After the short girl left, TRO was given her choice of which of the two hunter-killer class ships to go with. The only information she had was the ship names the Misfit, or New Pride. She picked the former because it sounded more fun. The renegade ship was impounded by the Rajuk family. The ship's captain and crew were divided between the mercantile ships and imprisoned during the trip to Johar. The Misfit's crew consisted of a wide variety of species. There were 7 in total. Her ship was loaded into the cargo bay. She heard Galgisham didn't mind being called crocodiles, but apparently her shoe joke was taking things too far. He wasn't any fun. Things only got worse when their lead technician insisted on taking a close look at her ship. He was a Shoshan with long ears. He reminded her of a rabbit, so she started calling him Bunny Boy after he insulted her skill as a pilot. He'd never seen her maneuver. He was basing his appraisal on the damage. The two of them got so upset with her that they dragged her in front of the captain to discuss her behavior. The captain was from a canine species who was upset that TRO couldn't tell the difference between a caiman and a vulpine, and threatened to throw her off the ship, in jump space, when TRO quipped that she couldn't tell one dog from another. The captain went by the nickname Misfit, and seemed to think vulpines were the best. A parent asking the best what it was a poor decision. It was agreed that she'd stay locked on her own ship until they returned to normal space, and then transfer over to New Pride for the remainder of the trip. Luckily, they were only going to be in jump space for just over a day. The New Pride had an all-Karzon crew, which was strange in an area so far from their ancestral homes. The long-held belief that Baron Deloric had done nothing to help his own people wasn't correct. Each member of the 8-man crew had their own stories of being rescued by Deloric. Def Corp, sometimes called DEFCON, had been working under various names for centuries. Trying to liberate Karzon space directly would have started a major war between the Mercantile Marines and TOS-COR, which was the parent company of DEFCON. It was a war they couldn't win. The most the Baron had been able to do was station a couple cloaked ships near the 2 Karzon systems in the hope of rescuing survivors from regional skirmishes. Most Karzon considered using an escape pod to be dishonorable. His policy was to only save cubs smart enough to save their own hides. The captain of New Pride was proud to point out that many of their kind had been liberated during attacks on slave markets and slaver ships. The Mercantile Marines had nearly crippled the industry, which just forced it deeper into hiding. There weren't any pygmies on board, so TRO was seen as a novelty. She spent hours playing catch with them and had loads of fun. She was the ball. The game was more fun with the twins back at the array, but it helped pass the time. She needed to get back, and they seemed eager to return to their normal duties, so they couldn't be the ship to bring her home, but they did let her access the Lightwave relay to update Tyrell. She was given her portion of the bounty once they arrived at Port Johar. The first mate told her to go to the dock area of the port city, look for Dizzy, explain her circumstances, and ask if she could help her get home. TRO felt like she was being tested. Every member of the crew described Dizzy very differently. They looked like a Terran and wore a pirate hat was the only commonality. They couldn't even agree on their biological sex. Finding them was going to be tricky. Allegedly, they had been a member of Baron Deloric's crew for decades, but were left behind when he vanished. What happened to Baron Deloric was a mystery. Even if Dizzy could help her find someone who could get her home, the chance to talk to a witness was worth the time. The dock district wasn't far from the starport, but took a while to get to. The inhabitants were all hostile in the friendliest ways she'd ever seen. Anyone you asked for directions seemed quick and willing to reply with incorrect directions. After getting thoroughly confused, she spent some time in an open-air market. She picked 3 people at random, and over the course of a half-hour asked them directions to 2 different locations and recorded their answers. They gave the exact same directions regardless of the destination, making it clear nobody was actually listening to the question. She wondered if she'd get an honest answer if she looked like she belonged here. TRO wandered into a local clothing shop, bought boots, a hat, and clothing that could be best described as a pirate costume. They were all surprisingly good quality, despite looking like novelty wear. She decided to buy a second hat sized for Vakir to have shipped to Jerem. She bought the best match for the hat Baron Deloric wore in the pictures she'd seen of him. While she was up at the back, talking to the clerk to make shipping arrangements, she mentioned it was for her uncle. She was careful not to mention Vakir's name, but showed them a picture. It was fun to watch the immediate change in their demeanor. Vakir looked like a perfect mirror image of Lorik. They suddenly were more interested in making sure her uncle knew who made the hat than trivial things like charging her for the extra hat and shipping costs. He was even nice enough to give her directions to the docks. When she mentioned she was looking for Dizzy, they mentioned she had a hat designed a lot like the one she was having shipped, but it had a wedge cut out of one side from a sword fight in the streets. From the sounds of it, that was what happened when you started a bar fight in the wrong part of town, which was apparently where she needed to go to find Dizzy. TRO would just have to focus on finding Dizzy and avoid confrontation with any oversensitive, easily offended, thin-skinned bitch pirates, like the crew of the Misfit. The sun was threatening to set by the time she was done talking to the merchant. Her destination was only about 8 blocks away, but it was unclear just how far that was. TRO got changed, put on her hat, and rushed through the store. Just as she reached the exit, the door opened. She had a split second to react. She was going to either collide with the door or the girl that opened it. They looked all wrong. They had long pointed ears, feline features, Terran-like hair on their head, cat-like facial features, short white fur like fuzz, and a pair of breasts like a Terran. "What kind of freaky thing are you?" TRO asked as she desperately tried to stop her forward momentum. Her problem was resolved an instant later as she was struck by an invisible wave of force which knocked her back. She was immediately unable to move or think straight. "Sorry, Beta," the strange girl said. "I may have hit her a little hard with my little psychic bitch slap." "Audie, I hope you don't expect me to carry her," a higher-pitched female voice said. "You broke her, you wait with her. We need a new deckhand. How about we hire whoever volunteers to help?" "If there's a job in it, I'll help," a husky male voice said. "Okay, Feathers, you're hired," the strange girl, Audie, answered as TRO's mind shut down. Desiree. Desiree's body tingled in the twilight. Her boots rested next to her on the dock as she lazily moved her feet back and forth through the water. She could feel the water being absorbed through the exposed flesh of her legs. Her species developed synthesizing indirect light. Sunset was the best time of day for her. The metabolic transition during the dwindling light helped the nutrients last longer. "Dizzy, we have a problem," Beta said. She glanced toward the sound of her voice, and saw 2 softly glowing eyes peering at her from the shadows. Having excellent low-light vision, she could see where the posh eye was better than she'd ever let the little trickster know. Beta's matte black fur was ideal for hiding in shadows. She was formidable despite being just over 2 feet tall. "I'm still drinking," Desiree said. She'd given up on trying to convince the crew to not call her Dizzy. Her name was Desiree, but before long, people truncated it to Des, which mutated to Desi over the years. All it had taken was that damn posh eye calling her Dizzy for a few weeks, and she'd been stuck with it for decades. "I still think I should get you some plant food," Beta teased. "I'm still not a plant," Desiree snorted. "That wasn't funny the first 10,000 times. Just give it up." "It makes some people laugh," the posh eye retorted. Desiree smirked. "What's your current calamity?" "We got to that shop that tipped us off they had a customer who claimed to know where to find Baron Deloric. I got there first. I was just going to follow them, but just as they were leaving Audie showed up." "Beta, slow down. Some details would be nice. Sorry. Shopper girl is this white pygmy. Audie opens the door. Fuzzy sees Fluffy. The Curzon calls Audie a freaky thing. Fine, Desiree sighed. I'll check through our contact list and look for a local mysterionicist who knows Query dead. The pygmy's not dead. Yet, the Poshai objected. Okay, then, what's the problem? Desiree asked. Audie got her really good, Beta said merrily. I'm proud of her. Fluffy has been out for a while. Oh, and I found a new deckhand. He and Audie are trying to move the pygmy to the boathouse, but Audie's not that strong. Why aren't you helping? Desiree asked. I am, Beta insisted. I'm getting you. I'm busy, Desiree glared. Tell Bob to help. He's going to have to get used to working with the new guy. I don't know where he is, the Poshai admitted. He was actually my first choice. He's resumed his quest for liver damage, Desiree said as she pointed to a bar near the end of the row. Desiree pulled her communicator out of the bag on her hip and slid it over her ear. Open connection. Maori Star Chaser, Desiree commanded. Engineering, go, Maori answered. Hey, Desiree said, company's on the way. They're bringing a very unconscious white pygmy Curzon your way. I'm guessing they didn't bother to let you know. Not a word, Maori said in their normal voice. Remind me, why do I put up with this, Desiree grumbled. Maori cleared their throat, lowered their voice, and in their best Baron Deloric impression said, 'Cause we all owe it to the ol' scallywag. Thanks, I needed that, Desiree sighed. You may want to call Audie for more information. I'd be glad to help, Maori said, then disconnected the call. Tyrell monitored the progress of Gregor's revenge as he carefully moved the craft away from the array using shock waves from missiles. He didn't like wasting resources, but he had to move it to a safe distance. The communications array beeped periodically, waiting for an outgoing call to connect. A connection was established. Tyrell's cyberpathy made it easy to tell the call was being routed through a scout ship to boost the signal. You're persistent, Terran, Vakir said. There was a longer delay than Tyrell expected. I received a message from TRO. She's alive, Tyrell said. I am transmitting it in an encrypted data packet now. She ended up about as far as you can get from here, while still being in Corrales. We may have to send her team to start the operation without her. Can you tell me where she is? Vakir asked. Jahar, Tyrell shrugged. Don't ask me how. We've had some strange days here lately. I should be able to send Gowrie with the Pygmy Tech crew in a day or two. I'll route the exact timeline through your friend on Carmel. I'll make arrangements, Vakir scowled. I'm not sure how I feel about her being in my brother's old territory. Can you find a safe signal hop so I can contact her? The further the distance, the higher the probability of interception, Tyrell said. I'll try, but keep that in mind. Vakir nodded. A few minutes later, Tyrell sent him a program which would force his transmitter to chain a transmission across a predetermined set of lightwave transmitters. Make sure to only use it once, Tyrell said sternly. The first hop is Falaire, so they'll think it's a Cheshire playing with the equipment. From there, it loops around the Tsar Nebula to Bohemia, then straight to Ilianti, where it will switch formats. Luckily, I have a connection that's letting me use the main Krall relay for emergencies. We can get straight to Jahar from there. This wasn't the intended use, but the signal is heading toward Kaylani space, so I'm hoping it will take time for them to notice it's not going to the right spot. When the connection gets cut, and it will be, just delete the file. I will. Vakir said. Thank you, Tyrell. After disconnecting from Vakir, Tyrell sent a message to Prask, asking if he could let his cyberpath contact in the Kryl area know that Tyrell was using his emergency bypass code to help someone contact a lost family member. He hoped if the network gatekeeper knew the situation, they'd take their time to close the access port, buying Vakir more time. If he was in their situation, he'd listen in to make sure it was just a personal conversation. The return message from Krask was strange. It was a picture of a cute girl with a message that read, "There's a lot going on, we'll have to talk when he has time off." Tyrell stared at the message. Krask was attracted to men, so what's with the photo? Roan. Working together, Audie and Maori had hacked into the White Pygmy's comm link. Saying the hardware and software were cobbled together would be far too generous, but it worked. They'd routed the output to an outdated console in the back of the warehouse they'd been using while making adjustments to their ship. The woman was still out cold, but their medical officer, Beta, insisted she was alive and would wake up eventually. They scanned through the images stored in the device looking for the image the shop owner had mentioned in the message he posted on City Board. "She takes too many pictures," Maori complained. "Can you put it on a larger screen?" Roan asked. "It's working, for now," Audie said. "Let's just be grateful for that." "Oh, wait, go back one." "This one?" Maori asked. "That might be the one, but it's a profile shot." "I know, but look at the tail on the pygmy he's carrying," Audie giggled. "It's held on with a leather strap. Maybe we should get one of those for Bob." "Hey, Bobtail," Maori laughed. "Do you want a strap-on?" He flashed them an obscene gesture before loading the next crate onto the ship. "Leave that one on the screen," Roan ordered. "Sure thing, Captain," Maori said as she switched back. Roan didn't have much hope that the image was actually of Baron Deloric. She'd ran into one dead end after another. She only knew of one pygmy with a false tail. This wasn't likely to lead to him, but if that was Jerem, it may lead somewhere interesting. She climbed around the assortment of parts strewn across the floor to get a good look at the screen. The full-size Curzon's markings were as unmistakable as the Flanix fur extension hanging from the remnant of the pygmy's tail. "I'll be damned," Roan whispered. "Can you use that to get the contact information for the people in the picture?" "I'd rather wait until she comes to, so we can get it from her directly," Maori said. "That's the fire tail that Deloric used to talk about, and the guy holding her, that's one of your mother's other brothers, Vakir, Deloric's twin." "Are you sure?" Maori said skeptically. "My father served with him," Roan scoffed. "I think I'd know." "It could still be a fake," Maori cautioned. "Carrying Jerem?" Roan asked. "Let's find out." Audie grinned as she accepted an incoming call. "TRO, what are you doing in Merc Marine?" "Territory?" Vakir growled. "You're not TRO." "She's out like a light," Roan grinned. "You've gotten angrier since my father died. A little silver around the edges, too." "Roan Silverfang," Vakir gaped. "I was told you died when Eru's command ship was lost. I survived with a little help from your father and more from your brother." "Escape pod technology," Vakir chuckled. "My father's greatest and most maligned contribution to our fleets, but what does Lorik have to do with stealth ships scooping up anyone smart enough to bail? He's saved thousands. We've been trying to find out where your brother ended up. Do you know anything?" "All this time," Vakir sighed, "I thought he'd abandoned his own people." "What do you mean where he ended up?" "There was a Stargate malfunction," Maori said. "We don't know where it sent him." "Who was that?" Vakir asked while trying to look past Roan. "Maori, can you send him contact information for the ship?" Vakir blinked twice, tilted his head, and said, "No, it can't be." "There are 3 of us you're going to want to talk to," Roan smiled. "We call ourselves Deloric's daughters. That test for genetic defects is a lie. They've been using it to kill off Karzon with knacks. Your brother was intercepting them when he could. Sarah was providing him with the transport flight data herself ever since she took your mother's position on the council. I'd like you to pass on information to her once we have someone in position to take over. The screen distorted momentarily. I was told the connection wouldn't last, Vakir sighed. I got that contact packet, but I can't call again until the war is over. Ask TRO for details. When you talk to her, tell my mom I still love her, Maori said nervously. The signal was severed while Maori was speaking. Kali. The day had a rough start. Ojerin had told her he may be late for her afternoon run. He had some explaining to do. After he insisted on not binding her tails for the night, he tied all three of them to a bedpost while she was asleep. She woke up slamming into the floor. It hadn't hurt for long, but her annoyance had been festering for hours. She was leery of her captors realizing she'd disabled the knack suppression field, so she decided to ease back into her meditation routine. Until she knew what caused her stripes to glow, she'd have to be careful. The electric lanterns they positioned around the room seemed dimmer today. She heard the door opening, but didn't see any light outside. It's about time, Kali said. I didn't know I was expected, Lilac answered from within the darkness. Oh, it's you, Kali said. Is Shugik with you? After yesterday, I was hoping we could dispense with the games, Lilac said. I was hoping we could just talk. You mean after it became obvious how comfortable you are with lying to me? Kali asked pointedly. She was staying just beyond the light of the lanterns. Kali refocused her eyes so she could watch her. The frequency of energy flowing through the force field didn't interfere with her vision. What lie? Lilac said. Don't you mean which? Kali sniggered. You lied to me about being asexual. When I'm honest with someone, I expect the same in return. I had just arrived. What purpose did lying serve? I don't remember. Lilac started. You said you didn't know how to handle me, I made a consent joke, and you lied to me about your sexuality, Kali reminded her. It was completely out of nowhere. You actually went out of your way to lie to me. I've proven I can be trusted, time and time again, but here I am, locked away from the world. For the remainder of my life, if your government has it their way. Lilac clicked her tongue. Can you tell me what crime I committed? Will you tell me what they did to Syntholo? Will you set up a meeting with the Xynon so we can negotiate a truce? Can you explain to me why your government has done nothing to stop the war in Midnight Fellowship space, after I told them what needed to be done? I suspect all those questions have the same two-letter answer, no. Lilac crossed her arms and glared from just within the circle of light. I'm just tired of lies, Kali shrugged. You can talk all you want, but don't expect me to trust the veracity of a single word. I've done everything I can to try to improve your living conditions, Lilac insisted. I wonder how often zookeepers and slavers say things like that, Kali chuckled dryly. Keep it up and I'll take your new friend off the approved list, Lilac sneered. You know what happened when the Xynon tried to come after me, you saw what happened when I had a nightmare about the Rashray trying to kill me, and you know what happened yesterday when Ruka tried to come for me. Do you see a pattern? I thought I finally managed to connect with you, Lilac actually sounded hurt. Why can't you try being a little nicer to me? I can't trust you, Kali said slowly, one word at a time. I came here to tell you they're opening the roof tomorrow, Lilac scoffed as she started making her way back to the door, but if they change their plans, I'll be accused of lying about that, too. Never make promises that depend on someone else to be kept, Kali said firmly. Lilac stopped in the doorway, lowered her head, and sighed deeply. Kali sat down on the bed and watched, wondering why she was just standing there. It was a shame, really. There was a brief moment on her first day here that she'd wondered if she could become friends with the short woman, but Lilac's superiors saw to it that wouldn't be possible. Kali resented her for following orders. She couldn't help but wonder how she'd feel about her if little Lilac wasn't so blindly obedient. Kali sighed. If I asked you to come to masculinity with me some night, Lilac asked nervously, would you? That was really abrupt and as out of place as the random sexuality comment. Maybe there was more to Lilac than she thought. Maybe she was in the military because she had problems understanding social expectations and that hierarchy made her feel safe. I don't know, Kali said, breaking the awkward silence. You'd have to ask. Okay, Lilac said, then left. Kali stared in confusion, wondering why she didn't ask. Apparently, the woman did have problems understanding social cues. Kali's answer would have been not tonight, ask some other time, but that was hardly the point. The door reopened a few minutes later. Kali was relieved that it wasn't Lilac. I'm sorry, I'm so late, Ojeran said as he hurried toward her. I hope you didn't start without me. I haven't, Kali said. Stay outside the force field and explain why you tied my tails to a post? I really needed to sleep, he said. You were right. I'm going to need to bind them until you get used to me sleeping next to you. Good answer, Kali admitted. Ojeran smiled. Turn off that mystrionic translation ability before you come in, Kali thought to him. The subtle green glow extending from his ears to his jaw faded. Kali refocused her eyes. They both spoke in a language which would make translation difficult as he entered the force field, and they started her daily jog. I found out a few things that may interest you while I was taking care of paperwork. My reports on the service you accompanied me on had to be added to your file, so I took a peek while I was in there. I got my hands on the citizen number for the guy you came here with. I passed it to someone with better clearance. It's that Syntholo guy you mentioned. They found out where he ended up. The Triad Confederacy is looking into it. Where did he end up? Kali asked. The Echelon system. Kali composed a quick inquiry to Gaurun for automatic transmission the next time her communicator was outside the building. Any news on the war? Kali asked. There are 4 factions in the Midnight Fellowship. The Loctarians are insisting your story is false. The other 3 are holding a vote later today on whether or not to withdraw their ships that are lending military and social aid to the Acrididae dynasty. The Triad Confederacy and Denaric Nation have been mostly unscathed, but the parliamentary flock took a major beating when they attempted military intervention. If this was caused by the Loctarians, they're going to have major reparations to pay. It's not like Cletharia will help rebuild. That's like asking a tornado to reassemble your house and put it back where it came from. Ojeran was breathing a little harder from all that talking, so Kali reminded him to pace himself while jogging. Azuri mentioned she'll be attending some boring ceremony in Lamentic space 2 days from now. Something about wings. I asked her to record it for us, maybe you'll get lucky and catch a glimpse of your Tejmare in the audience. Kali choked back tears as she said, thank you. I'm going to have to go back on duty when we're done with the run. I'm sorry that I won't be able to see you again until tomorrow's run, but at least you'll be out of here for an hour or 2 after that. They put a class on your schedule and I am your official escort. Pace yourself, Kali teased. What kind of class? Mouth stuff, I think, but don't hold me to that. I only glanced at it. Can you ask them if I can do it at Tuta? I'm comfortable with her. They set it for a more formal venue, Ojeran said with a shrug, but I'll try to get him to switch venues. Who authorized it? Kali asked. Some guy in the administration group. Ojeran shrugged. Kali smirked. It must be Jax. Well, at least she had some idea of what was expected of her. So much for biting her tail to make sure she got some enjoyment out of it. Better him than someone like Lilac, so at least there's that. Between Lilac's random visit, and them keeping him busy until midday tomorrow, she just couldn't shake the feeling someone was up to no good.